You're listening to Leisure World Direct. I'm your host, GRF Communications Manager Emma DiMaggio, and I'm joined by Executive Manager of Mutual Services, Dave Potter.
Hello, everybody.
Hello. The primer for this discussion is, this past election season, residents in even-numbered mutuals elected their board members to represent them on the GRF Board of Directors. However, in one mutual, no one stepped forward to run for the election. Dave, take me through what happened and its impact on where we are today.
So, to understand how that impacted everything, it's important to know there was a director who was serving for Mutual 16, and that director elected not to stand for re-election. There is an important distinction for folks that serve on a board of directors for a common interest development versus a public official, right? If you're on a city council or you're a mayor or anybody, when your term of office expires, you are no longer in office, period. That's how it works. That is not how it works for members of a board of directors for a common interest development. There's a section of the Corporations Code that states pretty explicitly that you continue to serve until your successor is either elected or appointed. So that protection is there because, quite frankly, most common interest developments don't hit quorum and they don't have elections. So if that proviso in the Corporations Code didn't exist, boards of directors for common interest developments throughout California would simply disappear when people decide that they're done with their time of service to their community and they're looking to step down. So in the case this year for Mutual 16, the director chose not to stand for re-election, and nobody put their papers in to run for the vacant seat. So there were no candidates that stood for election. The director in this case would serve until such time as they resigned. They are the sole person that gets to make that decision. They could have theoretically served the next 2 years, served out the full term, waited for the next election cycle. They determined to resign, and that resignation took effect at the end of the term. Basically like how it would happen if it was a public office. They resigned right before the new board was seated. So that created a vacant seat. And that triggered a clause in the bylaws for the Golden Rain Foundation. So in the Golden Rain Foundation, Article 6, Section 6, vacancies, any vacancy in the board of directors caused by death, resignation, or disability shall be filled by a majority of the remaining directors or by the sole remaining director. So that by itself sounds very simple and straightforward, but it's actually a little more complicated than that because you have to read through the whole of the section. So the very next paragraph in the bylaws for the Golden Rain Foundation states that upon occurrence of such vacancy, the secretary of this corporation, and this corporation means GRF, the secretary of this corporation shall notify the president of the mutual corporation affected by such vacancy and shall, at the same time, notify the members of the corporation who are residents of said mutual corporation. It's a very long sentence. It takes up 3 lines on a piece of paper. And what it basically means is that the Golden Rain Foundation, once there is a vacancy on the board, has the obligation to notify at the same time the president and the members of the impacted mutual of that vacancy so that they can take some steps to fill it. And what are those steps, you may ask? Well,
I was just about to ask.
I'm gonna keep talking. We're gonna read on here. Now, within 5 days of the date of said notice to the president of the mutual corporation and to the members of said mutual corporation, the secretary of this corporation, again, that means GRF, the secretary of this corporation shall be notified in writing by the secretary of the mutual corporation of the names of the nominees for the office in which said vacancy has occurred. That's not even the full sentence at that point, but we're going to stop there because there's a lot to parse and go through in the bylaws governance here. So that is setting a very strict time frame that says GRF will mail a notice out on a day, and 5 days later the mutual has to come back to GRF and say, here are the person or people
That are wanting to fill this vacancy.
Now, the bylaws set us up in not a good way, in my personal opinion there, because if you're going to notify people, you tend to notify them by mail. It can take 3, 4, 5, sometimes longer days for you to receive a notice in the mail. That's just the unfortunate reality that we live in right now. But the bylaws are strict. The mutual has to respond to GRF within 5 days. Now, the board also has the option to submit names. The Impacted Mutuals Board also has the ability to get together and say, hey, we want to nominate John Smith or Jane Smith, or maybe both of them, board, pick one of these people.
Mm-hmm.
But the mutual board has to operate under meeting notice laws, right? Under Davis Sterling, if you're doing an open meeting, you have to give notice to the members 4 days in advance for an open meeting and 2 days for an executive meeting. So it's a very compressed, tight timeline that I know people are not terribly happy with or fond of in the community. Unfortunately, it is what is in the bylaws, so we are obligated to follow what's in the bylaws until such time as the Golden Rain Foundation changes its bylaws.
We've spoken about this separately, but the reason for this tight turnaround is because that turnaround was established a really long time ago, and all of these open meeting laws, all of the rules governing common interest developments have kind of grown around these bylaws, which are very old.
Yes, 100%. The Open Meeting Act requirements didn't exist back in the 1960s when these documents were drafted. I would dare say that the post office was better at delivering things more timely than they are today. So we're operating under constraints that were established in the 1960s in the 2020s, and that the world has evolved, but unfortunately our bylaws have not at this point. So regardless, the outcome of that 5-day window is that the impacted mutual can report back, and there are 3 possible paths you go down at this point. The mutual will report, here are multiple names, 2 or more names, and if that's the case, it triggers an election. And if it triggers an election, the rest of the bylaws governing the specifics of how that election is supposed to be conducted, the rest of the bylaws actually become inoperative at that point because state law supersedes what's in the bylaws. And over the last 8 to 10 years, the state of California has really taken an interest in regulating common interest development elections. So we leave the bylaws at that point if the response from that 5-day window is multiple names. And then we go and conduct an election just in that mutual. Option 2 is that the mutual comes back and says, here is the one name. One person. All right, if one person's name is produced as a result of this, we go back to the first sentence that I read. Any vacancy in the board of directors caused by death, resignation, or disability of a director shall be filled by a majority of the remaining directors or by the sole remaining director. If only one person responds to that compacted call for candidates, the board appoints that one person.
Okay.
No question. The third path is the one we're on right now, which is if nobody comes forward. None of the members came forward to individually express that they wanted to run, and the board didn't submit any names in nomination. So we go to the end of the rest of that sentence in the bylaws that I stopped in the middle of earlier. In the event no nominees are named by said corporation, said office shall be filled by a vote of a majority of the remaining directors of this corporation or by the sole remaining director of the Golden Rain Foundation. So because no names were submitted at the end of that 5-day period, which ran from the 17th of June, a Wednesday, through Monday the 22nd, that's where we are right now. So the GRF Board of Directors, once we determined that there wasn't really anything on the books to govern how this process would work, they met and they determined that we are going to have an open window of time where anybody can submit their application to run, because that's how this is done. If a mutual is not able to produce somebody as a candidate, they still need to have representation. So we will open it up to the membership of the whole of the community. Anybody can submit their names now.
From any mutual. That's
any
what makes this
mutuals.
very strange.
That's what makes this a bit unusual, but it is how GRF has handled this in the past. And I think, I haven't been here for it personally, but in talking to people, it's something that does work.
Yeah.
So the board made the determination to open this up for nominations starting July 8th, which is a Wednesday.
Which is yesterday.
Fun fact, we're recording this before July 8th, so we're talking about the future as if it's the past. Yes, this is going to drop on, I think, the 9th or the 10th.
9th.
It's going to drop on the 9th, so yes. The candidacy period will open it opened, past tense, yesterday on Wednesday, July 8th. This is just like a candidacy that you would have for any GRF director seat. You go to the stock transfer office, you pull the paperwork there, you complete it, and you turn it back in. You will be verified against the requirements that exist, which is you have to have been a member here for a year. You can't be delinquent on anything. That verification process is completed, and then you will go into the pool of potential nominees that the board will make an appointment from. And it will remain to be seen how many people are in that pool. The nomination period will close on Wednesday, July 22nd.
Is there an anticipated date for those who are applying that they should have reserved for, making their arguments to the board on why they should be a candidate, or maybe their introductory statements?
Yes, saying it's argument, and I know what you mean by that.
I know it's not an argument.
But it makes it sound like it's a legal proceeding, or there's some kind of challenge or something, and it's not that. No, the board is anticipating and planning on having a special meeting on the 23rd, an executive meeting where they can meet with all of the qualified applicants for the position, so that each applicant will have not more than 5 minutes to present themselves and present their case for why they believe they are the best person to represent Mutual 16 on the Golden Rain Foundation Board of Directors. So if you are an applicant, I would be sure that you're marking off and holding the afternoon of Thursday, July 23rd on your calendar.
Do you have any advice or insight for people who are listening and thinking, maybe I should try to fill that vacant seat? Maybe I would be good on the board of directors. I haven't considered it before, but there is a mutual in need of some level of representation. Do you have any insight? Since you attend all these committee meetings, interact with board members, can you give a sense of what it's like to be a board member?
In general, particularly here, I think there is a pretty significant time commitment in being one of these volunteer members, because you are assigned to work on a couple of committees. Typical committee assignments will run 2 to 3 for the varying directors here. So you have a committee meeting to go to every month, perhaps 2 or 3 committee meetings to go to every month. It's ideal that you at least keep abreast of what's going on with regards to the other committees that you don't serve on. Then you have executive session meetings every month, and you have the open session meeting every month. So it's a decent amount of time commitment as a volunteer, and I would first be sure that you have the ability to make that kind of a time commitment comfortably in order to serve at the level that the community really deserves. The other thing is bring an open mind. I think with any board member, it is imperative that you come in with your thoughts and feelings on how things should be done, or maybe this is an important project that you want to see get prioritized better. But be sure to keep an open mind about everything too, because sometimes there are things going on that you may not have known about before you joined a board. And that's what the process is letting a group of 18 individuals decide something as a collective group, rather than having any one individual make decisions for the whole of the community.
Very collaborative approach, especially, I'm sure, with as many board members as we have.
Yes.
Is there anything else you'd like to add? People who are interested can pick up applications at Stock Transfer. They also drop them off at Stock Transfer.
Yes.
Anything else people need to know?
Just that the board's goal here is to have as open and transparent a process as possible, while still respecting their ability to have private deliberations or discussions about the matter. So I think we've done a good job with the process that the board put together here to balance those two competing needs. And I hope the community will feel that way too once we get to the end of the process.
If anyone has any questions about this process, you can go to Stock Transfer, or you can email info@lwsb.com. This has been Leisure World Direct.